I'm not going to talk about fractals or physics. What I am going to tell you is a bit of my story and my journey. In January of 1979, I was in an avalanche. 3 of my classmates were killed. It was a moment that will live with me forever. And I have several of those moments, and I will share those with you. That moment was a place that I'd never been, completely novel, in a situation that I didn't even know the word avalanche. What I saw was a mountain slide down, and I saw 20 of my friends covered up. That later became inspiration for other things I've done in my life. The story I'm going to tell you today is actually one of my passions in sailing. So let's go on a sea cruise. Everybody knows that song. I hate it. You're on a 60-foot sailboat. You are about 400 miles north of Bermuda. You're 400 miles east of Southwest Harbor, Maine. You are heading towards the big bend of the Gulf Stream. The closest land is Nova Scotia. The Bay of Fundy is sucking you in with 52-foot tidal currents and 10-knot tidal flow. It's really a place to be avoided. It's dark, it's foggy. There's an echo, and there's a rhythm on the boat. It's gentle, yet trying. You're tired. You've been out of Bermuda for about a day. There's no radio traffic, and it's okay because you don't know how to use the radio. And even if you did know how to use the radio, you are outside the 200-mile range. I see some Coast Guard here. You're outside the 200-mile range where they can come get you. You're in the second hour of a 4-hour watch, and you're thinking about going below, having a cup of coffee, and drying down. 2 members of the crew are below deck sleeping. And then something changes. The sound of the boat changes. The rhythm of the boat changes. The tension of the sails change, and the music becomes a loud, screaming sound. The sheets of the sails are swinging every which way. The boat now is changing directions. You jump up, you try to get to see if something has happened to the autohelm. The autohelm is not able to manage the boat. The boat now is in complete control of the sea. The square waves are hitting you from every direction. Something has clearly failed. The questions are growing. The boat is being tossed in a confused and raging sea. You are in the North Atlantic, and it is letting you know you are not welcome. It just sucks. You hear yelling from below deck, "Drive the damn boat! What's going on? Do you need help? What's going on? Has something broken? I'm coming up." The boat is completely under control of the sea. The noise is deafening and constant. You can feel your heart in your throat. You can't hear anything because it's too loud to hear. Something has clearly failed in the rig, is your guess. Below deck, things are being thrown and tossed about. It's like a war zone below deck. Things are hitting the hull. One crew member is going to the bilge to see if the water is staying out of the boat. Another climbs up, harness on, and a helmet on, trying to figure out what's happening. The sense is that the rig has snapped. The mast has actually cracked. We are instinctively going to different places on the boat to try to figure out what's happening, to gain control of the vessel. The sails are flogging. This is a big boat. Over 1,200 square feet of canvas is up. The mast is standing, but it is not working. We get the engine on. We are getting steerage back. The seasickness is everywhere. And we have learned there is no shame in vomiting because that is all we are doing. It becomes dry heaves and it's ignored. We're making decisions individually and collectively with no communication, no rule book, no checklist. We're just doing. The same way when we were on the mountain in 1979. We were just doing. Where are the ideas coming from? How are we keeping our wits? The trial and error of assessing the situation is guiding us. That trip from Bermuda to Southwest Harbor in May of 2019 was the inspiration for me for the work I did on adult learning. How old dogs, since I was becoming one, learn new tricks. And here's how I assessed the context on that sporty little trip back from Bermuda. There was a significant problem. We relied on prior learning to find a solution to a novel problem, a problem we had never seen. We were on our own, completely on our own. We had enough time to create time. That allows us to be more thoughtful, even if we were uncomfortable physically, emotionally, and we were overwhelmed intellectually. We quickly became composed, and we focused as we harnessed our experiences, our training, our imagination, our curiosity, the creativity, the fear that inspired us, the uncertainty and the frustration. We were feeling what was happening. We were feeling our efforts to learn. We became very comfortable being uncomfortable with the situation. And we continued to work on ways to get ourselves out. And that required us to be composed and get the vessel to respond. We knew what and why, but we did not know how. Could we learn our way out fast enough? Did we have enough energy to quell this challenge? Could we leverage any and all of our prior learning in anything to better our situation? The aha moment for me, as I reflected on it as inspiration, and as I reflected back on the avalanche, was there was nothing comfortable or linear about that time at sea or our time on the mountain. It was ragged, irregular, scary, frustrating, and then something would work. There was glee, there was joy, even though we were working through fear. We would go through the same trial and error effort as the ambiguity and uncertainty were motivating us and mediating us individually and collectively. We laughed, we cried, it became a part of us, to steal a line from Cheers. We found our individual and collective composure. The boat was very loud, it was very quiet. The mountain was very quiet, even though helicopters were coming. We relied on persistence and resilience. And all of that was already inside us. We had everything we needed, and that was all we had. Complexity science, which is the area that I study, describes the state that we were in as the edge of chaos. If we didn't have enough adaptive capacity, energy and time, we would not end up in a good place. We needed to use all of the capacity we had and grow adaptive capacity in the moment. That is adult learning. When you absolutely, positively have to use every part of yourself to avoid chaos and perhaps dissipation. Usually the adult learning we do is not as dramatic or spellbinding, like learning to play pickle, or, worst case, learning to use an Apple computer after you've used a Dell for 40 years. Nobody should try that. It's just not worth it. Or in my case, learning to make and grow and use sourdough bread. But it follows the same adaptive process. Composure, persistence, resilience, CPR. As we engage in trial and error method of growing our capacity. That is how adults learn. So where did all this come from? Just a little on complexity. I promised I wouldn't talk about fractals. I'm going to name a dog fractal, but I'm not going to talk about it. So in complexity theory in complexity science and chaos theory, it believes everything you need is already inside you to pursue adaptive responses and grow adaptive capacity. Self-organizing based on what and why, much like we did on the boat, much like we did on the mountain, is used to estimate how, or another how, or another how. Intervention in edge of chaos states is the last opportunity to maintain existing system integrity. Time is an intervening variable, and energy is an intervening variable. So the research that I did at Georgia, and some of you may have been involved with it, we played Minecraft. That research, these principles coupled with the literature on adult learning, specifically informal and incidental learning, inspired a novel effort in our research, which is why there was a patent. And the idea was to better understand adult learning as adaptive capacity inspired by uncertainty in the context, a chaotic state in the context, and to capture learning efforts to measure the complexity in that context, in that learning context, based on the learner's ability to learn a way out. Each of us learns and sees each context differently. So the old dog learning process is not smooth, linear, or regular. It's like a dog. It's shaggy, it's nippy, it's jumpy, and it's messy. Old dog learning is dynamical and ambiguous. It's rough and it's hard, and that's what the math says too. So the really big ideas that emerge from the research are the roughness of learning, this phrase. That uncomfortable, demanding effort we inherently use is governed by a function already in us of latent adaptive capacity, time, which is environmental, energy, and uncertainty, just 4 variables, and they interact. The learning context inspires this adaptive process. That CPR, composure, persistence, and resilience, provides a blended alchemy, I love that word, of these ingredients. Sometimes composure is more important than persistence, more important than resilience. But we frame it and use it each time individually. Uncertainty, sometimes our enemy, we're hearing a lot about uncertainty now, is the inspiring and intervening variable in defining the edge of chaos. Realization by the learner. We feel it. It's that measure of complexity in the environment. The learner's adaptive capacity is a function of time and energy to support the CPR process. The learner may not have enough adaptive capacity to learn a way out. There is a ceiling on CPR, time, and energy. The learning context may also not trigger adaptive capacity. There is disengagement, disinterest. There is a floor. So what does this mean? It means go sailing. It means go see what happens. Knowing by using adaptive capacity, the what and the why will reveal the how. Know that the how arises from the laws of complexity science, interacting to create emergence. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, where the operative word is sum. Learning is not linear, it is dynamical. And remember, the rules are all made up. How is truly revealed based on the context. How is not defined or constrained by the rules. It is only constrained by time and energy. So it means if we can measure complexity in the learning context, we can see when a learning process exceeds one's adaptive capacity before it moves into chaos for the learner. We may be able to intervene on some level to augment and supplement the native adaptive capacity to create enough energy to avoid chaos or disinterest. By removing the orthodoxy of the traditional learning curve in all of its smoothness and replacing it with the adaptive process of informal and incidental learning in all its roughness, irregularity, and shagginess, learning interventions, self-directed or organized, can be timelier and more surgical to support the adaptive CPR process. Knowing everything you need is already inside in the form of adaptive capacity changes how we think about and pursue new learning as old dogs and new dogs, and how we continue to learn and adapt to the context and the environment. Why does it matter? Well, this research did produce a patent-worthy approach to examining adult learning. It's also that learning can be used to inform AI algorithms by quantifying complexity and help old dogs know how they learn new tricks. It can also help AI unlearn, which is an interesting concept that you are going to be seeing a lot more about. Now, thank you.